Bjorn. Oh. Bjorn, you're first again, buddy. Nice. Yep, you are actually a person again now that you're first. So that's good. It's a good thing for Friday. Yeah, there was we actually wanted to make sure you were first this week, so you didn't like try to jump out a window this weekend. So everybody got in like 10 seconds later, just for you, buddy. You guys gonna have to excuse me because I'm gonna go get some water. So you're gonna get to look at my empty chair for about the next 15 seconds. So get ready for that one. Should be exciting. All right, that must have been fun. This is me. This is supposed to be me. See, growing stronger. It's just it's a re-memeing of the original Kevin meme with my face and like red eyes or blue eyes or whatever the hell I had. So, Metro Man, it could be work. CSD guys have been with us now for 1 week, testing out 2 devs. I didn't say testing; they've kind of just started to dig into the code. So yes, the official big project though we haven't fully negotiated yet. Okay, yeah, gotcha. So I guess it's Kevin Murcko in real life, and like super Kevin Murcko or something. That's not that creative. So maybe a Metro Man sounds kind of cool. I guess. I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. You hit me with this. That was kind of curveball. I wasn't ready to answer that question, so not quite sure. Metro Man's not bad though. I mean, it's easy, right? You can remember that one. Everybody can remember Metro Man. Kind of sounds like a shitty Metro police officer though, but. All right, guys. I guess we'll just get rolling, right? Usually we wait a few minutes, but let's just do it. All right, so hold give me 1 second, guys. I gotta pull out my AMA sheet with all the little questions and whatnot. All right, so this is your first time joining us. My name is Kevin Murcko. I'm CEO here at CoinMetro. This is This Week in Crypto. We follow an agenda here, pretty straightforward. First item on the agenda is market news. I go through 10 pieces of market news curated by our elite Telegram group. Thanks the guys and gals that happen to populate all these nice little news stories every week. These are 10 pieces of news from last week, or this past week, I guess. I comment on each one. Usually I take about a minute on each one. Sometimes I take a minute and a half. Sometimes I take 2 minutes. If it's a story about Binance, I might take 4 or 5 minutes. But outside of that, it's about a minute each. So roughly 10, 15 minutes. Let me move on to Kevin Explains Crypto. I have a term that was also curated over the last week, voted on by that elite Telegram group, I will explain what it means. Simple as that. Try to explain what it means. I guess sometimes I hit the mark, sometimes I don't. I don't know what the hit ratio is, but anyway. Then we get into the live Q&A, and that happens right over in this general area here on YouTube. And then Reddit questions. So let's see if we have any Reddit questions this week. Yeah, we got a few, 3, 4. So I'll probably run into those before we actually get into the AMA. I think it makes sense. So let's jump right in. We'll start with market news. If you have a question, you can post it now, or you can wait. If you don't want to hear me talk about market news, I'll see you in about 10 to 15 minutes. If you do want to hear market news, here we go. Number 1 on the list of 10, Binance. Oh boy, starting right off at the top of the hour here. Balances and orders are allegedly not being processed right, be in crypto. I don't know why this is so big of news. Yeah, so they have a technical issue. I'd like to say we never have any of those. That'd probably be a lie. So look, all tech-related companies have tech issues from time to time. I don't know why I'm saying something nice about Binance. Maybe I'm just having a bad day or a really good day. I don't know. Point is that, you know, no matter how big your company is, no matter how much money you have, no matter what your revenues look like, or how small you are, and what's the size of your, you know, client list, this happens to everybody. So story says here, having problem checking their balances. I'm assuming they have some API issues, probably some connectivity issues, could be some server issues. They have servers in different places around the world, I think all linked on some cloud system. So if you have one main server down, you're trying to connect balances that may exist on another server while you have an issue. So it had happened to a bunch of different people. They're saying, you know, funds are safe, which I'd have to say they probably are if this is an API issue. But yeah, just goes to show that no matter how big your balance sheet is, these issues happen. Especially because this actually is a clear point that in most other, let's say, regulated or more matured financial markets, most systems that companies use are standardized. So Bank A, Bank B, Platform A, Platform B, whatever, all end up using similar or the same back office services that are used by everybody. So they're standardized. So things tend to happen less, mainly because it's one company. Now, when something happens, it happens across multiple providers, right? But generally speaking, it happens much less. Here, every single company generally has their own products, which means it can be a bit of a minefield when you talk about errors and things going down. So anyway, it just means that, you know, you got to focus where you have to focus, right? Make sure your fucking systems work. I mean, that's number 1 on the list, right? Number 2 on the list of 10, Bitcoin's Lightning Network is growing increasingly centralized. Yeah, well, it's centralized. So, well, how is that a Lightning is basically centralized by its very virtue, right? You need to have credit in the Lightning network in order to make Lightning payments. Someone has to manage the credit. Thus, in that it is centralized. So obviously, the bigger it grows, the more centralized it becomes. I'm not a researcher. I figured that one out in about, 8.5 seconds. Maybe it was 9 seconds. I don't want to pat myself on the back too hard here. But it's a centralized system. You know, it just shows that at least when it comes to Bitcoin, probably the most decentralized asset that currently exists in crypto. Keep messing with my nose, guys. Sorry, I'm like runny nose, and unfortunately, no paper or napkins around me. So you guys are gonna have to deal with some runny noseness out through the show now. But anyway, just goes to show Bitcoin being probably the most decentralized asset that exists in crypto. Slow. Need something like Lightning to speed it up. Obviously, for that speed, things need to be centralized. The bigger amount of use that Lightning gets, the more capital that comes through Lightning, obviously the more centralized it becomes. Number 3 on a list of 10, Sweden is testing its new central bank digital currency. Yeah, I saw this, e-krona. Cool, I was just in Montenegro talking to the Montenegro authorities, capital markets authority, central bank, etc., about just this central bank issued digital currency, CBDC. Actually did a lecture on it as well at the one of the biggest private university in Montenegro. It's cool. It's cool to see. We were actually talking about who was going to be the first in Europe to actually get it done. This is a test, so it's actually, as far as I know, it's kind of monopoly money at first, just to show how the system would work. All countries in the world will issue central bank digital currency. That doesn't mean they're going to issue crypto, guys. Doesn't mean they're issuing their own version of Bitcoin. It just means that there's a big difference between e-money. So for instance, if you have a debit card, a credit card, you have an account at some e-money provider, like something like a Revolut, or even though Revolut now has a banking license, but bear with me, something like that, you've already dealt with electronic money, e-money, right? The U.S. has regulation that ties around what I'm not sure, I think they call electronic money, not e-money, but hey, in the EU we have e-money. Around the world, most large economies have some provision for e-money. What e-money means, it's the electronic version. It's backed by the actual legal tender. Meaning on this side you have dollars, euros, whatever, and then you issue e-money. It's like mirrored. So you have 10 euros, 10 e-money euros units, 10 e-money units, let's say, and you basically mirror those accounts. The difference with central bank issued digital currency is the digital currency is actually legal tender. There is nothing backing it, just like there's nothing backing the euro or the dollar the paper currency, let's say. So it is a big step forward because it means that they don't have to actually create or print money to actually issue e-money. They don't need to have a separate ledger. They don't need to have two ledgers working at the same time between the legal tender and the e-money. This is simply just one unit. So everyone will do it. I mark my words. Every single country in the world will have a central bank issued digital currency. The question is, who does it first? And the Swedes, off to the races. Good for them. Funny thing is they launched it before China, even though it's kind of in test mode right now. So good for them. Number 4 on the list of 10, Binance CEO CZ says Bitcoin halving not priced in. Great. I don't know how it wouldn't be priced in, right? You know why? Because everybody knows about it. It's like knowing the news that's going to come out. Now, it's one thing, for instance, in currency trading for years, right? You have something called NonFarm Payroll. Call it NFP for short, because we're awesome like that. So NonFarm Payroll comes out, I think, on the first Friday of every month. I haven't actually traded in a while, guys, so bear with me. I could be wrong on that, but I think it's the first Friday of every month. NonFarm Payroll basically says the change in jobs that don't have to do with farming, right? So how many new jobs entered the market or how many jobs left the market. That's a big mover in the currency markets, right? Because it's one of the biggest direct impacts on spending, GDP, et cetera. So anyway, it's a big mover, right? So it can move the US dollar, euro, whatever, many basis points, right? So NFP, usually a few days before NFP, you get all the experts' opinions on what they think the NFP will be. More jobs, less jobs, how many more jobs, how many less jobs, et cetera. And it starts to get priced in. Now, I've been in circumstances where most of the experts say on NFP, you know what, it's going to be positive 150,000 jobs, and it ends up being negative 200,000. I've seen those things. And obviously the market prices in 150 positive and then freaks out when it's 200,000 negative. But most of the time, it's pretty close. In this scenario, we have a piece of news that there's no question about what the news will be or when it will happen. We literally know the day, the time, and exactly what the news will be. So how the fuck is that not priced in as soon as you know it's going to happen? It's an impossibility. It's an idiot statement is what it is. It's 100% priced in. Now, does that mean it was 100% priced in literally as soon as the more of the mass populace understood what halving meant and it was mentioned in the news, priced in, done. Now, that doesn't mean that nothing will happen on the day of the halving. Why? Well, most of the time in markets, depending on how mature or immature they are, the exact opposite of what you expect to happen will happen first. Because mainly, so you expect positive news for Bitcoin, expect selling to happen before buying. Because the guys that know it's going to be positive are not going to buy into other people's buying. That's stupid. They want to buy into people selling. They get cheaper prices. So what they do is they simply wait. News comes out. All the small fish see that the price isn't going any higher. They wonder, Jesus, it's good news. Why is it going higher? Maybe they know something we don't know, and they sell. And that sell pressure, because most people were waiting it on the buy side, triggers lots of stops real quick. makes the price fall even further, and then the buying starts. I would expect that's probably what's going to happen around the day of the halving. But to say it's not priced in is moronic, is absolutely moronic, because there's no other news that can happen. We're not going to get on the day of the halving and go, oh, guess what, guys? We're not halving. We're 3/4ing today. Ha ha ha. That's not going to happen, right? I mean, the news is known, 100% priced in. Number 5 on the list of 10. I told you, if it's a Binance news story, guys, 1 minute's just not enough. I could have kept going, but I'm gonna move on. Crypto exchange Fcoin insolvent after revealing up to 130 million Bitcoin shortfall. Yeah, not much good to say on this news story, I think, other than the fact that Fcoin, well, they really fucked you there, didn't they? I mean, that's why they probably had the name. So insolvent, yeah. Look, guys, I don't know the background of Fcoin. I'm not even going to read the story. I think the point here is that I would almost rest assured that these guys don't have the background to which they should be running a financial enterprise. They're probably not regulated by any stretch of the imagination, Chinese-based, something like that. Probably had absolutely no 4i principles or anything inside of the company. They weren't watching the money. They had no automated alerts, nothing. And if they did, they weren't properly tested. And I read somewhere that I think since 2018, they probably had this issue, and the issue simply compounded over time. That means that a small issue that snowballed and 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 snowballed, at no point did anyone catch it until they went bankrupt. So that means nobody was looking. So that means there was no anything in place. I mean, forget it. There wasn't even a position probably for someone to pay attention. You know, that's the good side of the story. The bad side is that they saw it happening and they actually were stealing that money, and that's why. And now you're just finding out what they've been doing, siphoning money off the top. And maybe even worse than that, because this at least shows intent and maybe that they were trying to actually do something, even though it was illegal. Even worse than that might be that they didn't know they needed someone there, or that they actually should be checking. So I don't know. You picked your poison. It's still poison regardless. Number 6 on the list of 10, SEC nails Enigma ICO, orders refund, registration, and fine. As I've been saying now for 18 months, I think this was well expected, not specifically for Enigma, but the SEC, after any type of judicial precedent, which they've gotten a few times now, will go after more and more ICOs. It's just another one on the list. So there you go. I would expect more. So number 7 on the list 10, Visa grants Coinbase power to issue Bitcoin debit cards. I think this one might be slightly misstated. So Coinbase has become a Visa, what do they call it? Partner, principal membership. Yeah. So principal membership comes most of the time simply from the fact that you issue a lot of cards. So you become a principal member. And that gives you almost like a board seat kind of thing. That's not that prestigious, but it gives you basically a seat so you can help dictate some of the policies and how Visa goes about distributing in certain areas of the world. Yep, so they cut out a middleman. Great. Okay, so obviously these cards aren't linked direct to Bitcoin. So here we have it saying issue Bitcoin debit cards. No, they're issuing USD, Euro debit cards, and the Bitcoin's getting converted on their side. There's no such thing as a Visa Bitcoin card. Can't spend Bitcoin on the Visa network. Then becoming I mean, it's a good step for the industry as a whole. That's for sure. I think Coinbase does a lot of things they should be doing. Though, as I mentioned in the past, many times when we do any type of KYT on our side, know your transaction, Coinbase tends to be in the middle of a lot of, let's say, medium to high risk transactions. And that's probably because they're just big and they get exposure to lots of transactions. But having said that, again, I think they do a lot of things they need to be doing. They're definitely aware of regulation. They definitely do what they can to comply with it. So then becoming a larger part of the Visa network is just good for all of us. It means that Visa, MasterCard, and the likes are starting to open up to crypto companies, and they're not simply writing us off just because we're in crypto. They're actually going to do some research and find out they should do business with us. So that's a good thing all around. Number 8 on the list of 10, Jesus, Binance all over the place this week. Binance CEO says crypto exchange has applied for a Singapore license. Okay, a Singapore license. I would assume that's a license in Singapore, not a license called the Singapore license. So let me delve a little deeper. Let's see. Okay, what kind of license is what I'm wondering. Okay. The updated Payment Services Act brings what is termed digital payment token services covering all. Upon the act, crypto firms required to first register and apply for a license to operate in the jurisdiction. Okay, so it's basically akin to, it's the fifth anti-money laundering directive type licenses that exist here around Europe. Same type of license we have in Australia, by the way, or registration, and the same thing you would have like under FINRA in the United States. So anyway, not a big deal. I thought maybe they were going to be going after a stored payments license, which you can actually move up to 35 million in Singapore on a yearly basis, I believe, without actually even needing a license, which is a reason why a lot of fraudulent entities end up in Singapore first, but are trying to skirt regulation of laws, or at least loopholes. But anyway, this is kind of, I guess they probably have a lot of clients in Singapore, so it's just something they have to do. It won't be hard to acquire, and they should acquire it, mainly because it's more of a registration. You're required to simply show that you're doing the correct things, i.e. in terms of KYC and AML. It's not something that usually would get denied. So not a big deal. But it does show that from 2 years ago till now, Binance is actually at least paying some attention to regulation, where before they didn't pay attention to any of it. So bit of a change there. Number 9, a list of 10, UK crypto exchange CoinFloor launches no BS service for Bitcoin beginners. Yeah, CoinFloor recently as well dropped all other assets but Bitcoin. So they're a Bitcoin only exchange. They weren't seeing volumes on anything else, and now they're going down these no BS. I think the no BS thing, I haven't looked at it. I assume it's built for newbies. That's great. There obviously are way more newbies in the world than there are people that know what they're doing. So I guess that makes sense. The fact that they're only focusing on Bitcoin, the vast amount of liquidity right now is in Bitcoin right now, makes sense. My question is, what happens afterward? What happens when Bitcoin isn't the main liquidity engine inside of crypto or the tokenized market? What do they do then? Number 10 on the list of 10, Brazilian crypto exchanges crushed under the weight of tough laws. I think this is probably better said, Brazil crypto exchanges crushed under any type of law. I think that's kind of what we're saying here. So they have some strict tax laws that have come out. Crypto firms also face a $350 fine should they fail to file a monthly declaration. So if you don't file your declaration for 10 years, it's $40K fine. Oh boy, that's tough, man. That should put a lot of companies out of business. You can't pay $350 a year. Moving on. So I think what it is that they went from having no oversight to any oversight, and that'll knock out pretty much the lowest hanging fruit, right? The guys that really didn't know what they were doing, or really were running just a complete monstrosity of a business, it basically put out of business. Look, guys, if you're running a financial business, again, I repeat this all the time, and you didn't expect the tax board to show up one day and go, "Hey, bro, can we get some of the money you owe us?" Or the regulator saying, "Dude, seriously, you're taking all this money and you're not doing any checks. Maybe you could start. Maybe you could actually check to make sure human traffickers aren't, I don't know, sending money through your system." I mean, if you have time within all the other stuff you guys have to do. I mean, this is inevitable, right? So whatever. I mean, it's kind of Darwin's law, right? I mean, the only the strong survive, right? So, fine. All right, so we're through the market news. Let's do Kevin Explains Crypto real quick, then we'll jump into our Reddit questions, and then we'll move on to this Ask Me Anything. So today's Kevin Explains Crypto topic is halving. Halving. The halving. The halving. It sounds to me, to be honest, the first time I heard this word, even though I already knew what it meant, it just sounded like a really cheap, like Korean, like horror movie. Like where some I don't know, really weird spidery looking woman would be crawling on the ceiling making funny faces. The halving, or like the phone rings and you pick it up and there's some screechy voice on the other end, and then you just hear in the background, the halving. And I don't know, some big Bitcoin comes out and eats some woman or something. I don't know. That's the first thing I thought of. I don't know about any of you guys. So let's get back to this, because I think we cut these things out so that we can put them on YouTube, and this is just going to completely destroy this segment. So I'm going to start again. Kevin Explains Crypto this week. Jesus Christ. Anybody can pronounce this correctly? Halving. That's like the act of cutting something in half, right? Okay, so It's just a horrible Friday, guys, I guess. I don't know. I'm just all over the place today. So, halving. The point is what does this mean, right? So to everybody out there who doesn't know what this means, basically, specifically to Bitcoin, Bitcoin, in order to control inflation, after a certain amount of blocks, cuts in half the reward that's given for finding the Bitcoin block, which contains the reward, right? So we went, I think initially, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. What was the first amount of Bitcoin rewarded? Was it 100 or was it 50? Let's see, Bitcoin. I actually don't remember, to be honest, guys. I'm gonna do a quick search. Let's see. Somebody probably already typed it, but I'm busy. Okay, so Vestapedia's got a nice little. Yeah, 50. Okay, it was 50. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so 50. So every 210,000 blocks. This is a long one this week, guys. Should I start again? I think I should start again. I think we should start again. Halving. The halving. Yeah. That's probably the way it should be said. What do you think? Let's start again. I'm starting again. This is like the fifth time. I feel like it's like the first time I've ever done this. So Kevin explains crypto this week. Halving. That term, specifically related to Bitcoin, refers to every 210,000 blocks that the reward given for finding the Bitcoin reward in a specific block gets cut in half. The reason they do that, the reason this was done since inception, is to control inflation. Right? So every 210,000 blocks, the first Bitcoin rewards were 50 Bitcoin per block. Now you have, or not per block, but per reward block. Now you had, and then they went down to 25, which it is currently, and very soon here. Did we already go through it? Jesus, what a day! No. We still have 11,000. Yeah, we still have 11,000 blocks to go until we hit the halving. So when we do, we will cut that reward down to 12.5. Simple as that. It was done to control inflation, to basically make sure that the price of Bitcoin went up over time, or one of the ways to make sure that the price of Bitcoin went up over time and didn't suffer from any type of inflationary decrease in value. Having it. Yeah, having it. There you go. But not really, though, because the word is having. The happening is the actual verb, right? But the noun, what is actually happening, is having. The verb is the happening. Anyway, shit, I don't know. We tried. Okay, so I'm going to jump on Reddit real quick, and then we'll get over here, guys. So, can you add the Dutch payment method ideal? This is from NeoHolder. Very easy to get done. The only thing most people use here. We would need to do it, as far as I know, through a third-party provider. I don't know if we can connect to Ideal directly through our own European bank account if it's not based in the Netherlands. But we'll have a look into it. We'll have a look into it for sure. International Mix. Hi, Kevin. How is the self-assessment framework progressing for listings? No update on that, unfortunately. But the LHV audit is coming on Tuesday, so we should find out then. Well, not then, but shortly thereafter. Any idea when we can expect new listings? Same thing. We heard last year debit cards were coming imminent, but now it appears we pushed back Q3, Q4. Any reason for this? Well, the provider we were going to use actually had to change up their correspondent banking relationships, and that's taken some time. We were told last week that in 2 to 3 weeks, they would have virtual IBANs ready, and that would be their first jump into actually going down the debit card road. So really, it's because of those third-party providers. When do you expect joint marketing with QNT team to kick off? Soon. So I think we're going to get through this technical issue that we have right now with SEPA, make sure that all our systems are fully online, and then we'll focus then on those few things that are still left in that to-do list for February. Six My Bad. Can you give us some concrete examples of what kind of marketing will happen? Ads on websites, ads in real life, influencers? Thanks. All of the above, plus some more. So it's just about, look, marketing means all of the above. It means marketing in the real world, marketing in the virtual world, influencers. It means probably some exposure on specific websites, maybe text ads, maybe banner ads in some cases, Google AdWords, Facebook ads. ads through Instagram, ads through et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, TikTok even maybe. But it will be fine-tuned once the team is in place. The one mistake we don't want to make is to create a plan and then force feed that plan to the new team to make them, because we want them to feel comfortable with the plan, which means they need to be a part of actually putting it together. Hey, Jeff, the halvening is happening. Yeah. See, I didn't have halvening though as my word. I had halving. So, and halving when it's written looks like halving, right? So, and it's like it's not even a tongue twister. It's like a tongue killer. Like your tongue just dies when you try to say it. All right, let's roll back here. Let's see, back on this AMA. How much time? We got 30 minutes. We'll be good. Okay, we talked about Metro Man. Is CM on schedule in the context of the Q1 roadmap? We sure are. What was the reason volume went up so high for such a short period of time? It seemed like it could have been the new norm with launch of market makers, then it all disappeared. What gives? Well, if you notice, volume around the entire crypto sphere went up. Basically, people were loving Bitcoin again there for a second. Everybody was saying this is a lot for the 18th time, in 3 or 4 months. This is the last time Bitcoin's going to see 10,000. I hear that. I'm getting tired of hearing that one. So, everybody and their grandmother was jumping on the bandwagon. That's one reason for why it spiked so high. But it did have, obviously, market makers being there, extra liquidity being there, and us adjusting spreads from a top of book VWAP price for a decent amount of Bitcoin down to 1 Bitcoin top of book, and then putting the rest of that volume through tiers significantly reduced the spread as well. All those things combined saw that uplift. But the biggest piece of that uplift was, well, basically people were just happy buying Bitcoin because they thought this was the last time they'd see 10K. Crispy applied for a compliance officer position. Well, we'll have to check that CV. If the CV is good though, then I guess you'll get a call back. When are you going back to Pakistan? I haven't set a date yet. There is in March there is a event which I may take part in, but I don't know yet because I'm still in March as well. I'm planning to go talk to the SEC. And perhaps one of the first issuers in the Montenegro sandbox, which is a very unique product out of Brazil. So I have to see how my schedule looks. Yeah, China, F-Coin, yeah. When do you think about eToro commercial with Alec Baldwin? This is from Brian, 1.6 million views. They have the same thing as Tram. Actually, they don't necessarily have the same thing, but yeah, eToro came out with their trade book for FX years ago, and now they're pretty much the only game in town for copy trading. They call it copy trading for FX. How do I feel about Alec Baldwin? Look, I don't know. I mean, Alec Baldwin is obviously a pretty well-known actor. How much does that really penetrate the market you're looking at? Who are the guys that really are going to want to try to get passive income out of a matched cryptocurrency platform? I tend to think those are still 18 to 35-year-old males. Do 18 to 35-year-old males really identify so much with Alec Baldwin? I don't know. I think the concept of using someone famous obviously gets you a lot of views. Does it actually convert is the question. Now, eToro has paid a lot of money in advertising over the years. They've done a lot of different types of advertising. This is only one of them. They've had their names on jerseys and all these things. I don't know what the conversion looks like for them. Obviously, it gets a lot of people to look at the ad, which is one step in the right direction. I don't think we would do anything like that, at least in the beginning, simply because, well, I don't want to be paying Alec Baldwin. I think the same commercial with anyone, but that puts the point across of the product, can get similar amounts of views. Are they our direct competition? They are very expensive. I don't know if they still do this, but in the beginning of Tradebook, they said they were straight through processing and they had one market maker. That market maker was a Cypriot company in Cyprus that was owned by the same people. So basically they market made into their own clients and they made money when you make losses, which kind of goes against them trying to show you who's the best people to copy. Their copy trader works from account to account, meaning that there can be slippage, right? Which meaning if you copy this guy's trades and he's trading at a quick pace and you're copying them, you can actually get different entry and exit points, which is different from our system. We guarantee the same entry and exit points across all mirrored accounts. That's a big advantage, guys. So they are a competitor in some ways, but I think for the most part, they trade CFDs. We're not trading CFDs. So in many aspects, no. On the front face, though, to a client that might be a retail guy that doesn't necessarily know all these different the differences between the two, I would say yes. In that sense, they are our competitor. Any new business developments? There's always lots of new business developments. I have to say that this week, getting back from Montenegro and then having to finalize some things on that side, not getting so much sleep the past few days because of the same. Let me think about that one and I'll get back to it, Bjorn. But yes, Montenegro is definitely one of them. We expect now to finalize everything inside the sandbox in terms of submission, documentation, etc. Between today and Monday. And we will rock and roll on that. I will probably be back in Montenegro, maybe not next week, but the week after to finalize the company and corporation of the companies, et cetera, for both Igni and for CoinMetro. So things are moving along there quite nicely. Any marketing positions locked in as of yet? Not yet, still in process. Hey Kev, big fan here. Keep on the good work. Love the project. Thank you, Bob. New trams in the making. Always new trams in the making. There's always a bunch of private trams or a group of private trams that are trading. At some point, those will some of them will go public. There's one that's been waiting to go public. I've heard around the office that's going to happen soon. Will that be the first? What will be the first issuance in the CSD and how much are they looking to raise? Also, when? It's not about raising initially. These are bonds with companies that have already issued bonds that already have pre-existing clients. So the money will be raised. The money is already pretty much raised. It's just a different delivery mechanism for them. The first issuance, I can't tell you exactly what the first issuance will be. It can be one of probably 3 different entities. This Brazilian product might be one of the first. That means it's the first, but it could be one of the first. Also have a company here in Estonia that may issue that looks to be issuing a bond. Might not be the first though, could be the first. So I'm not sure yet on the first. Plus, as far as we have some non-disclosures here and there about that until we actually move forward and do some PR. But right now, honestly speaking, we don't have a first. I can't tell you exactly who will be first. Thanks for the definitely start again there, Jeff. Appreciate it. What's the latest on marketing? Yep. So still going through the hiring process on the marketing side, but still moving forward with different aspects of that internally, getting systems ready, onboarding, getting that ready, going through and getting that promotional code system up and running and tested. So there's still things going on, but still looking for those marketing people as well as other people on the team as well. How much XCM volume would CM need to allow XCM investments into trams? I don't know if it's a specific amount of volume that we'd be looking for. It's more about just stability. So it's more about just pretty much getting a more stabilized book, right? Instead of being so heavily weighted on one side. Yeah, halving equals less Bitcoin. Less Bitcoin being released into the circulation, that's for sure. When those currencies, are you still waiting to get those licenses before launching? Not waiting so much on the license there, Mohammed. We're simply just right now we have to rely on third parties because we don't have the license, and the main third party contact we have had to revamp their correspondent banking relationships. So I've been waiting on them. I was told 2 or 3 weeks that they'll finally be ready to move forward. And this was about a week ago, though initially it'd be euro and pound only. And then basically their goal is to get another 1 to 5 currencies a week after the second week following the launch of euro and pound. That's their goal. Can you guys write a nice blog article about the virtual IBANs? Sure, once we're getting closer to actually pushing them forward. Like we talked about last time, is that virtual IBANs are great, but if we don't, before we have the license, we'd be limiting the use case of those virtual IBANs because we wouldn't be able to allow third-party payments. So the question is, does it make sense to launch them beforehand? But definitely there'll be a blog post once we do decide whether or not we're launching them. How many private trams are there? To be honest, I don't know off the top of my head, though I know there's more than one, less than 1,000. So I know that doesn't really answer your question at all, but there are multiple private trams. Bob asking, do I have a favorite anime? I've never actually watched anime. So, in fact, there's some Kevin memes that are anime, and somebody had to explain to me what they meant. So that makes me probably more old, more bald, and more out of touch with current society. But that's the truth. So there you go. So yeah, I have no anime favorite because I've never actually watched one. So the closest I've ever got to watching something about anime was my daughter was watching Pokemon once on TV. And I said, what the is that? That was pretty, I think that was my, exactly what I said actually, like verbatim. Is it true that the CSD product will be built in partnership with Chainlink? That is not true. The truth behind that is a little skewed from what you just stated. The truth is that I met Sergey from Chainlink in Hong Kong, and I discussed with him that there might be a way or a need for having some oracles for the CSD to parse information, let's say for corporate actions. For example, when a company wants to digitalize some of their corporate actions onto our platform and they're using some type of old school ERP, sorry, Jesus. ERP is essentially an old school system to like reconcile data and like Cisco systems and all this other nonsense. So let's say they have some old school database where they're collecting information for votes, corporate votes, and they want those corporate votes to then get be recorded on chain. We would need some type of oracle to make that happen. So that was the idea to bring Chainlink in. Now, though, at least internally, we're seeing that there may be a better way to do it. So we're kind of trying to figure out what else Chainlink could possibly work with us on, or if this is still a good idea for Chainlink. Still in talks with angel investors, any new funds coming in? Haven't been actively in touch with any new angel investors yet, been dealing with other things, but we are still actively looking to engage angel investors, yes. Would you consider raising the floor level to 3 cents? Not at this time, no. I don't think I think the 1 cent floor has shown that it was placed correctly, seeing as we never touched it, and that anytime we got anywhere close, there were lots of buys happening off that floor. But I think to be honest, I'd rather remove the floor rather than raise it higher. But at this point, I don't think we're ready yet to remove it either. Can you describe how CM should look at the end of 2020? It's always about onwards and upwards. So I would envision one that obviously we're already in the sandbox. We've been operating within the sandbox. We hopefully at that point, towards the end of 2020, have a vision for where we're going outside of the sandbox, a clear vision. And we're also looking at expanding now into that with our payment institution license, expanding our current footprint of products into more banking-like products with IBANs and virtual IBANs and third-party payments and all that good stuff. I think at that point we would obviously we would already have been doing some marketing for a certain amount of time. We probably would have already been in another round of capital raise as well, which could be from our current group of angel investors, might be from external investors as well. Obviously more clients on board, more products on board as well, a healthy revamping of our entire onboarding process. Definitely more awareness of CoinMetro in the general public. And I think definitely more PR in terms of Montenegro and possibly some other sandbox-like venues that we will hopefully enter before the end of the year. What's the timeline for debit cards? For this current third party, I think it could be within the next, actually, you know what, the timeline is probably similar. For them, it might be 3 to 4 months. For us, based on the need to apply, get approved for, and then look to find our own suppliers, which some of that can be done in parallel, we could possibly look to get it done on our end in 6 to 8 months. However, at first I would like to do it through a third party because it would allow us to reduce some of the risk on our side and the cost. But I don't want to go just to any third party. There are companies out there, Solaris Bank, Qantas, Wirecard, who can do this. The cost is actually quite high, 100K, 200K, 250K to get the product off the ground. And you see significant reduction in actual revenue back to the company. And most of that revenue has to be shared. And that means we can't provide the best price to our clients and we make less money. So I'd much rather do it through a third party that I know that's going to give me a better deal, or do it directly. So I think we have to wait, but that's more or less possible timelines on either side. Do you have systems made in Java, C++, or in older programming languages? Yeah, Java, or not C++, sorry, C#, I guess. Is that C#? Yes, our matching engine is C and Java. We have Node.js. We have React on the front. It's basically the MERN stack. So yeah. Will Parsec services be used in the CSD? Parsec services will most likely be used in CoinMetro and the CSD, yes. More than likely, CoinMetro will do the majority of AML, KYC checks, et cetera, for the CSD, which means that indirectly, even if the CSD doesn't use those services, they will still be using them. When will CMC pull their finger out and get the right data stats? It's something we've been working on, revamping again our wallet structure so that hopefully they can understand what we try to tell them for like a year now. So anyway, we're working on it. It's not, we haven't dropped the ball there, guys. It's just, we think we finally got somebody else at CoinMarketCap that's actually responsive. And now we're trying to work it out with them. What were your first impressions of Sergey? We talked for about an hour and then he turned me over to one of his head of development. He listened. He commented that he thought it was interesting. He asked a few questions about the CSD, what we were trying to do. He seemed to understand it, understand the basics. I would say from a first talk, I would not be against having a second one. I can't give you like full insight because it's not we talked too much about too many topics. It was about one topic. He seemed interested. He definitely seemed like he knew what I was talking about. So yeah, interested to have another talk. Was Sergey eating Big Mac when you met him? No, he was not. I think he was drinking a Coke though. So definitely some sugar intake. I didn't see any Big Macs though. What license are you looking to acquire and what are the costs? Well, that's a good question. So payment institution license, not so much about the cost of the license. So every license has many different types of quote unquote costs. You have the cost you actually pay for the license to the government. You have, which are filing costs for the most part. You have the costs internally of putting together the documentation because you have to revert your staff to do that rather than doing other things. There's a cost there. That's an indirect cost. You have a direct cost to legal counsel, which depending on the complexity of the license submission can be quite high. And then you have the minimum capital requirements, which aren't necessarily a cost, but it's money you need to have frozen in your accounts. Like you really can't use that money. So in terms of payment institution licensing, it's 125,000 euro minimum for minimum capital. Though in reality, you need about a year's worth of operating expenses. So you're looking at maybe 250,000 to even more. It depends on the size of your operation. You could be talking about significantly more, but let's say 250,000 euro, 300,000 euro, roughly in that realm. The cost to submit is rather small, and legal costs can range from 30 to 60,000 euro for that license. Now you have licensing like MTF, which is part of an investment firm license here in Estonia. Legal cost is roughly the same, but it's more on the higher end. So I would say 40 to 60, right? But more closer to 60. Minimum capital requirement, 730,000 euro plus first year first year expenses. So roughly 1.2 million euro in minimum capital. Then you have all these smaller licenses around the world, the registrations like Australia, Singapore, that was mentioned at the top of the show. These generally have a cost of somewhere between 1 and 10,000 all in. Sometimes maybe upwards of 20,000 depending on your legal counsel, but all in. Australia, we did for significantly less, for example. But in terms of big licensing, we're talking about MTF and investment firms, so investment firm license with MTF permissions, and payment institution or e-money licensing. Where can I go find more information about XCM? The white paper isn't available on the main site. Well, you can definitely ask our support right there on the main site. They can get you a link to the white paper if you'd like to take a look, though obviously some things in the white paper have grown significantly since the white paper, though some of the basic information is obviously still accurate. We also have, I believe somewhere we have a write-up. It might be on the blog. I would go ahead and ask support. Ask where you can read up some more information about XCM. They'll supply you. Or you can ask in Telegram as well. And someone will give you a nice little piece of information to look through and read. Okay, guys. Any more questions on this lovely, cloudy, slightly cold Friday afternoon? Almost, it's not dark, which is already a plus here in Estonia, that's for sure. I mean, dude, it's 3:52 p.m. here and it's not dark yet. Amazing. Do you hold any crypto? Yeah, I do. I held more. CoinMetro actually owes me a significant amount of crypto. So indirectly through CoinMetro, I also hold crypto. But yes, I do hold some crypto. I don't hold any crypto that other than majors that are traded on our platform, nor do I hold any crypto that I've had any direct conversations with about listing, other than majors and XCM. I think Jeff is laughing because my little disclaimer there at the end. What do you think is the biggest challenge for CoinMetro attracting more users? Attracting users isn't that much of a challenge, but it costs money. And you need to have the proper infrastructure in place to start doing that on mass scale. I don't see that as a big challenge. I think the challenge is just getting to the point where you have the enough users to make sure that you're self-sustainable. It's getting to self-sustainability and profitability. That's always a challenge for every business. It doesn't mean it's insurmountable. It should never be insurmountable, to be honest, as long as you don't throw in the towel. But I would say that in and of itself is a challenge. It always is, right? That's a challenge. But it's a challenge that can be overcome with a good team, obviously with some money in the bank, but a good team and a good plan that can be overcome. So yeah, it's all about, once you build the product, we're still building out some of the products. So there's still some challenges related to product build out, getting everything, getting the best possible onboarding system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we're working out those kinks, and I think we've been working them out, but I think we're very close to getting to the point where I would say our products on the whole, and even our client journey is on par or better than most. Though there still are some that are better in certain instances and for certain specific tasks. And our goal is to get on par or better than that as well in those specific tasks and specific customer journeys. So I think we're close to doing that. And when we do that, it's really about client acquisition. This company becomes a client acquisition, marketing, and support company. And that's then where all the challenges lie, right? Because everything else becomes secondary once you have the product. CM is market buying XCM through fees. I assume the intention is to throw these XCM back into the market someday. Isn't that some kind of price manipulation? Nope, not at all. Stock buybacks happen all the time. In terms of stock, because when you think about, well, first let's be clear that tokens, that our token as a utility token is not a regulated asset. So that means now, and I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent here, but the term capital market is a well-defined term, right? I would say, and you can look up that definition on your own, but I would say that the crypto markets, now you could argue maybe Bitcoin's market might be almost considered a capital market, almost, though it doesn't reach all the checkboxes either. But the utility token market is nowhere near a capital market in any stretch of the imagination in terms of the definition of a capital market, which means you cannot have market manipulation on a token, theoretically. So in that aspect, I would say no, specifically no to that. However, let's assume this was treated like a share or a stock or a bond. Still no, because market manipulation, first of all, we would have to do this in such a sum that we would be able solely to move the market based on these buys. The buys are a small percentage, a very small percentage of the actual, let's say, market movement that happens. So even as they grow, let's say we get to the point one day where we're buying 1 million XCM a day, or 10 million. Well, that means that the overall amount of movement on the market is massive. So we're still a very small portion, a small percentage of that. So in my mind, no, it doesn't ring true to market manipulation. It's like a share buyback, which happens all the time. Share buybacks are not considered market manipulation. So no, I would say no. What would happen if most CM users would use CM only for cashing out crypto? Would you eventually run out of fiat? Well, no, we're never on the buy side, right? So if someone's cashing out fiat, somebody else with euro on our platform needs to be buying it. So there's always a counterparty, and that counterparty is never us. So no, CoinMetro would never run out of fiat. Appreciate the AMAs. Thanks for your time. You're welcome, Stephen. Thanks for being here and listening. Will the CSD drive most of the marketing campaign for global domination? No, at least initially when we do PR with the Montenegro government, for example, it'll be a 50-50 split. Basically, you can't really test and show how one of these products is an innovation without showing the other one, right? Settlement is meaningless without trading, and trading regulated assets is meaningless unless it doesn't really change it. I shouldn't say it's meaningless, but you're not changing anything in terms of how the traditional market works without that real-time global settlement. So it's 50-50. Outside of the sandbox, once we start to move, it depends on the size of each company. I do think that the CSD has the ability to grow bigger faster, but CoinMetro has an equal amount of ability to become larger than the CSD in terms of market cap. That's for sure. But because the CSD is B2B mostly, and in many parts of the world, there's no other competition. If there is, there's minimal competition, and the service is absolutely needed to provide more liquidity. It makes it just it's easier for it to grow initially. The constant buying of XCM is not going to move the market, no, but CM selling them in bulk might. If we were to sell them in bulk, yes. But we wouldn't sell them in bulk unless there was enough liquidity on the buy side to buy them back without significantly crashing the price. Because if we're selling them in bulk, it means that we have more to sell, more than likely, right? We're not going to market sell one humongous order, right? If we're going to market sell, for whatever reason, we'd be market selling probably multiple orders. We wouldn't want to basically lose money, which means we'd be wanting to sell into buying opportunities, so or sell into the buy side. So theoretically, if we were to just to dump with the express idea of pushing the price lower so we could buy it back, well, then that's definitely manipulation. Is it hard to hire being a startup? Yes. Well, it's hard. Look, is it hard to hire? Hiring is not hard. Is it hard to find the right people? Yeah, as a startup or otherwise. It's, if you don't find the right people, well, shit happens. If you find the right people, management becomes easy. It's really easy to manage the right people. You don't really need to do much. It's really difficult to manage people that aren't good because you have to do a lot more. And then you become micromanaging, and then, the whole kind of, let's say the whole feeling inside the company changes. So it's not just about being a startup, though. It makes it sometimes more difficult when you're competing with bigger startups or bigger companies where, they have, I don't know, free catered lunches, Starbucks coffee, rock walls, and like arcades inside their fucking break rooms, and you're trying to hire a tech guy from there who's in his like mid-20s and he thinks it's awesome. And he comes to your office and you have a coffee machine, and a ping pong table with one racket, then yeah, I guess from the perk side makes it a bit more difficult. But you're also able to do things from a startup side that normal companies don't do. You can offer equity, equity perhaps. You have a bit less strict policies on the hours that people can work, when they can come to the office, etc. So there's a bit more, let's say, flexibility, which can sometimes make it easier. But hiring is always difficult. Doesn't matter where you are. Even Google, right? Google has a lot of churn, I imagine. They it doesn't, just because Google's Google doesn't mean they get everybody awesome through the door the first time. So why not let Oliver kick off the marketing to avoid losing more time? You do have limited funds to sustain yourself. That's true. And we have started to kick off some marketing. It's a decision that's made based on, the facts at hand. And the facts at hand are that we had a plan to go into before we start marketing. Yes, we have limited funds on hand. Regardless of how much money we have, it's always limited, right? Even if you have $1 billion, you're limited to $1 billion, I guess. But at the end of the day, you need to, we know how much money we have allocated based on a runway, how much we would have allocated to marketing. It's going to be the same amount regardless, whether we start now or whether we start at the end of that period. So we want to make sure that the fundamentals are there. Oliver has been working hard with the team to make sure the fundamentals are there. When I say fundamentals, I mean the structure, I mean the onboarding processes, I mean all these different things that need to happen. And this is a startup, this is a business. Shit happens sometimes where you have to revert some some things happen that pop up that take some of your time, even if you don't want them to, because they're just happen to be more urgent than other things at hand. So dealing with all those type of things and dealing with regular day-to-day stuff. So it's not that we're stuck waiting to find the marketing people. We are still moving in the right direction, and we are still moving to the point where we're ready to do marketing. We're simply looking to hire the team that's going to manage it. So anyway, we had in mind basically roughly mid-March was going to be our starting point. And we're still relatively on that track, right? So we might be slightly later depending on the amount of time it takes for the hires to actually come and get on board. But we're generally within that same timeline. All right, guys, we just popped over the hour mark. So I guess I'm going to say thanks like I always do. As I always say, spend time with friends and family this weekend. Don't look at price. Buy some XCM. Dude, if you forgot the gift on Valentine's Day for your loved one or your friend, and you're just really, really guilty about that, belated XCM, man. Best belated gift you could ever give somebody. Thanks, everybody, for stopping by. Appreciate the questions. Got some good ones this week. Well, we always have some good ones, but I felt we had some decent ones this week as well. Thanks for listening. Thanks for dealing with me on this Kevin Explains Crypto doing it 17 time thing, like take 1, take 2, take 3. Appreciate that. And tag me in Telegram if you guys have any additional questions at Kevin Murcko. You can tag the same tag on Twitter, on Instagram. I'm on Facebook too, but I never use Facebook, so don't even bother looking for me there. But you can definitely find me on Twitter. I jump on there every once in a while. You can find me. I'm not so much on Instagram either, but definitely Telegram and Twitter. Tag me there. I'll find you. I'll answer. And like I said, have a great weekend. Talk to you guys soon. And thanks for your support as always. Cheers.